Welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast. Listen in as we discuss all things business, growth and marketing with business owners, thought leaders and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, founder of Roundhouse, the creative agency, Saul Edmonds.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Grow Your Business podcast. Today, I'm speaking once again with Paul Farmer from the Mentoris group around the topic of why change management is essential for business. Paul, how are you going today?
G'day, Saul. How you doing?
Yeah, really good. Great to have you on again.
Excellent. For who said lightning doesn't strike twice?
The person who didn't get hit by lightning?
Bingo. Yeah, someone not holding an umbrella. Yes, obviously.
Yeah, that person, the person without the big metal antenna in their hand. Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah. So we've got, like I said, thanks so much for popping on the podcast again. We've got another great topic today, which we were saying is about why change management is really essential. Now, we've had you on before and we've gone over a little bit about Mentoris and history and services, but just for the benefit of people who haven't heard that previous one, could you just give us a brief overview again of you and Mentoris and the sort of services that you provide?
Oh, I better make sure I'm consistent.
Just remember what you did last time.
So what we do is we act like a business partner for businesses, small to medium-sized businesses that don't have that internal resource. So, for example, a sounding board, someone to talk strategy, someone when they're looking to make decisions, but they just need someone to bounce it off to say, look, we're thinking about doing this, does it make sense? So from a small to medium-sized business, a lot of business owners don't feel like they can have that conversation with the team that they have. They may not have the expertise, they may not have the experience, they may not have experienced it before. So we provide that external sounding board, independent sounding board to the business to be able to have them throw stuff at us. We don't have all the answers, granted, but at the same time, it gives people an opportunity to bounce stuff off someone who's like an advisor, a business partner, to help them be able to keep moving forward. So we offer, one-to-ones, we offer group workshops, and we also offer strategy days, half-day, full-day strategy days for businesses to get their strategy in place to be able to ensure that they can keep moving forward and look forward for the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, sure. That's it's certainly a powerful tool. From our personal experience, it's really invaluable having a third party person like yourself or other people to actually help with your business, because as we all know, it can be quite isolating sometimes in small business, and you can become it's very easy to become very insular. So the extended topic also then goes into that idea of change management, the importance of it, but then keeping focused and how then to maximize that sort of impact for the people in the business and how the business runs. I'll just get you, if you want to start off, you can kick off the topic with, I guess, your initial thoughts about that wording too, because it's used a lot, right? Like you hear it online, people talking about change management, but I'd say probably also from my experience too, before I had experience in really thinking about it, unless you're going through it and then you have someone to help you manage it, it can be a very open topic. So what are your thoughts on what it actually means?
So there's a couple of areas to look at. One is change and one is management. Throw them together and we have what we're going to talk about. But looking at them independently to say, especially at the moment with everything that's going on, we're in uncharted territories. Unprecedented is a word that has been banned in our house based on the fact that You know, my wife is in PR and marketing for an organisation that is helping with COVID, but in terms of unprecedented has been banned. So I'll use it as much as I can today because she's not in the room. But for us, change is inevitable. Things are going to happen. It's how you actually adapt to that change, which determines, I mean, last podcast we talked about a simple equation, which was an event plus reaction gives you your outcome. We talked about that. Change and dealing with change is something that can cause people to get excited, to get frustrated, to get scared, to get overwhelmed, to get anxious. People handle change in different ways. For me, it's about things, and we were just talking before we came on here, things are going to happen. It's inevitable. You know, the only one thing that's a given is death. So, you know, everything else is things are going to happen. Things are going to come up. Things are going to, we're going to be presented with challenges, and it's then how we deal with those. And then from a management side of things, as I say, it's how you take the changes that are needed, wanted, come at you, how you take that and you manage that process to ensure that you get the result that you're looking to get from your team, your business, your circles, yourself, all of that wrapped up. It's how do you manage the initial challenge that you're presented with, and how do you manage that to get the results that you want, that you're after, over a period of time.
Yeah.
And so where you find, you know, it's think of the analogy of a horse bolting and someone grabbing onto the tail and holding on. What impact can they have on change management for if that horse represents their business? And this is a real example of a business that I know, is that their business took off and the owners just grabbed hold of the tail of the business and gone, right, well, I need to be able to try and do whatever I can to try and either rein this thing in or work out how I can actually slowly grab a bit more of the tail so I can swing myself up onto the horse and steer it in a direction or slow it down or whatever it is. So you take that as an analogy and go, well, you know, I didn't make the horse bolt, but now the fact that I'm holding onto the tail, what do I need to do to try and get myself up onto the horse to then be able to take it in a direction that I want to take it in?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the horse can always kick then too, can't it? If you pull the tail too hard.
Bingo. And if I don't do whatever I can to get up onto its back and get in control of it, then the horse kicking me is a real option.
Yeah.
You know, the other option is the fact that the horse stops suddenly. Then you're, you know, in a position where you're holding onto a tail and you might end up in somewhere that may not smell as good as it should. So, you know, in terms of how do we get up onto the horse to be able to get in control of it, and that's the management side of change. We talked, as I said, last time, you know, stuff happens. It's how you react to it. Well, change happens. How do you actually control it, or how do you react to the change that's happening?
And so
being able to manage that process.
Yeah. So then from say what you do, you're talking to business owner or owners and you're speaking about current change that they're happening, that is happening in the business, whether that's something like that horse that is all of a sudden just accelerated and they have to work out how to deal with that particular situation or what have you. Where do you, what I understand, like you might obviously come in at completely different points in time in that timeline, but what in your experience is is one of the most effective things that you contribute in sort of what you do to that sort of process when you're talking with people?
So a lot of the time when business owners are faced with change, one of the things that they tend to lose sight of is what they ultimately want their business to be.
Mm.
They're faced with change, then their focus generally becomes the change in front of them and dealing with the here and the now, which is what you need. At the same time, you also need to have one eye on what you want your business and the direction you want your business to go in, because the decisions you're making now will impact the direction your business goes in. I was having a conversation with a business owner this morning before I jumped on to chat to you, and that exact conversation came up. It was, there is a change that's coming in their business. Depending on what they want their business to be, that will shape the decision they're going to make now. Because it will have an impact on whether it's the size of the team, the clients they want to work with, the business that, if there's something that they know is coming up, they need to get clear on ultimately what they want their business to be, because that will shape the decision that they want to, that they're looking to make coming up. So from start with the end in mind. It's like, what do you want your business to be? And then look at the decision you're about to make. And is that taking you in that direction, or is it taking you in another direction, which then changes ultimately what your business is going to turn into? So it's getting that clarity around what it is that you want your business to be post decision. Yeah.
And then I guess, am I right in saying to have reverse engineering a roadmap with your help to to do that? Because I guess like a lot of people may already have a roadmap, but in your experience, through those conversations, how often is it revealed that the roadmap is kind of quite right, like it's almost on the money, but it's still not, doesn't the actual road and the roadmap doesn't quite reach the actual endpoint that ends up coming out in the conversation that you have?
Yeah, 100%. It's, without a roadmap, you never really know where you're going to go. Now, one of the things that, and being in planning and forecasting and strategy and being in that space, a question comes up often. They say, well, ultimately today we're going to set a plan for 12 months time, what we'd like our business to be. But tomorrow that will change because something will come up and we'll make a decision. And, the plan that you put together is only right on the day that it's put together. The next day something changes which impacts it. At the same time, if you don't have a view, you're standing at the bottom of a mountain and you look up, you know where the top of the mountain is. The path that you take to get to that mountain, if you are 100% rigid on that's the only path that you're going to take, then when you encounter a rock that you can't climb over, do you stop? No. You work out a way to actually navigate that rock to be able to keep getting to the top of the mountain. So when we're looking at getting a plan in place and going, well, ultimately in 12 months' time, this is what we'd like it to be. If we get fixated on this is the exact thing that I'm going to do over the next 12 months without any flexibility, you get frustrated because the things that you may be doing aren't working. So everyone's using the word pivot at the moment. You have to say, is this working? Yes or no. If it's not, then ultimately I'm still trying to achieve this at the end of the day, but we're going to have to navigate a little bit of this and a little bit of that to get us to that ultimate goal. Yeah. Which is why people every 12 months, people generally, they'll do a strategy session where they sit and they go, okay, well, 12 months ago, this is what we said we were going to try and achieve. How did we go? And when you look back, you don't see a straight line from we said it here and we got to here and we did all of these things that we said we were going to do and we achieved our goals. It's like, yes, awesome. Generally, you look back and there is just a squiggly line of carnage that you've gone through, but at the same time, you've still got to the ultimate goal. And you've just worked out a way to keep going to get you to that ultimate target.
Yeah, I guess it's Well, it's still it is a, in some sense, a linear roadmap, but with a lot of twists and turns.
There's and there's a perfect, you go on, jump on Google and you know, the life of a small business owner, and someone will say, well, from naught to goal is a straight line, whereas then you see the next image, which is the reality is from naught to goal is endpoints, and you've got like a bundle of cotton that's just all over the place and up and down and around and back and forward and up and all of that. So it's being tied to how you get to somewhere without flexibility. That's where people get frustrated, because I'm not doing it as I set out to do it. But if you get fixated on what the end goal is, then you can work backwards and say, well, over this period of time, what are the things that we can put in place with some flexibility to be able to achieve that goal?
Yeah. Actually, it's one of the things that it's obviously has a little bit to do with timing too. I've been watching, as I've been cycling again, I've been watching a lot of mountain biking downhill trail videos. Yep. And the first thing that pops into my head there is that what you were saying is actually very much like, some of these trails, is there's a lot of like smooth straight bits, and there's a lot of parts that are just intensely rocky and really sharp turns, and things that, especially if you haven't gone on that particular roadmap, should we say, like in these trails, you'll probably have a crash, and then you see that all the time in these videos. And then, but if you've gone on it before, then you get better at it. Like you don't the first time, the second time you get a bit better, the third time, and sometimes you have to loop around and go through it again. So it's in some ways for me, it's like a perfect sort of visual metaphor for that.
Yeah, and it is, because at the end of the day, your starting point, where you would like to get, and the interesting piece to add into that is it's about the feeling you will have when you achieve that.
Mm.
That's the thing that we seek the most. The goal is a goal, but the feeling that achieving that goal, if you can tie into that ultimately will drive you more than going, okay, well, I've got a goal of getting, turnover of $1 million. It's like you hit $1 million, it's like, great, that's awesome. Next one I'll go to $2 million. But if you can tie achieving that goal with what the feeling will be when you get that, because then generally it's more about what achieving that will allow you to do.
Yeah, what it represents.
That mean, That's right. So tying the feeling of that result into, when I hit that, I will be able to do this, and it will make me feel great, then bang. That will then drive you more than say, oh, my goal is this. Because at the end of the day, it's the feelings that we get about achieving goals. That's the thing that drives us. The goals are just a tool to allow us to experience the feeling or not. Either way.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's I think that's probably like a much more of a key point than everybody realizes, because there is often, being in business, those, the earning of income and having good cash flow and all those really practical things that are a part of the end result are of course crucial. But you're right. And just on the back of that too, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts, based obviously on all the different sort of people that you talk to from different sorts of industries and different, their history and what they've done before running their own business. The idea of like the power of a third party person like yourself in change management, because I guess there's that idea in one respect that, why couldn't you do it yourself? And then why use somebody else? But, having been one of those people in the past who sort of, I guess, thought that, which I haven't for a long time, and realizing that having an external person like yourself assist is incredibly powerful. But what's your thoughts on why that actually is the case?
So the interesting concept, when I first considered doing coaching and getting into coaching as a profession, one of the first things that I learnt was that we all see the world differently. It's built up, and there's some science behind it, but in terms of it's the way that I view the world is potentially very different to the way you view the world and someone else views the world. And so if I'm in my business and I'm running my business the way that I see it, and it's one of the areas that leaders tend to get into their own way of operating. And it's interesting that when people tend to start looking to hire people, they hire people exactly like them because they think like them and they know what they're going to get. The interesting piece about it is the fact that generally when you look at organizations that are successful, they've got people that think differently. Or if they don't internally have someone that thinks in a particular way, you look at why boards add people with different expertise onto the board, because it provides a different perspective on what they're trying to do. Because everyone brings their own element of expertise. And one of the things that I was talking to a guy last week about innovation in IT, and he was saying that he went through a period where it was his business, he built it, everyone did things his way, but then he realized that he had a team of people that were skilled in areas that he wasn't necessarily the expert. And so by having someone with a different expertise, experience, knowledge, belief system, which also impacts the way that we see the world, all of that wrapped up, if you have people that have different perspectives on things, it means that your view of the world isn't the only view of the world. And by having leaders give their team members the ability to be able to bring a different perspective, it means that there may be options that I don't see because I only see my view of the world. But having someone else who has a different perspective may add value to what I'm doing because I'm not thinking in that space. I'm thinking in my space. So to be able to broaden the options that I have in front of me, you then introduce people, whether it's internally or externally, people that have a different expertise. They have a different experience. They have, one of the benefits of having been in accounting, strategy, leadership for 25 years plus is that you've experienced a lot of what people are now experiencing. And so to be able to throw that into the mix, whether it's through telling a story about downhill mountain biking or whatever, being able to throw that into the mix then gets you to think about things a little differently, to say, actually, I could do that. But I hadn't thought about it because my tunnel vision was my view of the world was the only view that I saw.
So I've always been quite interested, and also I might say like the fact that you also have concurrently with your coaching, you're also a sport coach too, and you're then interested in that idea of having that kind of experience in another area has always been interesting to me. Well, one, I guess because of my interest in sports too, but the understanding of like that same sort of role, but in a sporting sense. How do you feel, or do you feel that experience in the sporting sense has an impact on how you do things? And if so, what are those things? Like in that, I guess, cross-pollination between the two?
the correlation between sport and business is something that people will look at sport and go, oh, yeah, it's a social activity. It's something you do with mates and whatever. But when you sit down and look at it, either team-based sport, individual sport, there are so many correlations between what happens in the sporting arena and what happens in business. It's not funny.
Mm.
You look at certain people, from a sporting perspective, and you've got someone who's an up and coming talent. They are looking to do, to excel in their field. So what are the things they need to develop? They need to develop values, beliefs, abilities to be able to build their network, to be able to be seen and promoted, and they need to be able to react to change. They need to be able to set goals and standards and be able to ensure that they are driven and focused on being able to achieve a certain goal. So we're talking about set the goal, the end in mind. What is it that you want to achieve? And then set a plan in place. Sporting teams and sports people do exactly the same thing.
Mm.
It's probably even more important in the sporting perspective, because generally they don't have big structures around them to allow them to be able to have access to, whether it's other leaders, other businesses, other resources. Generally, the sporting environment, unless you're in the professional area, they tend to be a little less structured. So they've got to do a lot more of that by themselves. So from a coaching perspective, it allows us to be able to bring some of the business into the sporting arena, to be able to have them look at the end in mind. What is it that you want to achieve? How do we go about it? Leadership, how do we pump their tires up to allow them to be able to hit the targets and get the feeling that they want around winning a premiership, or setting their personal best time, or learning a new skill, which means that then means they're a little bit better than their nearest competitors, which is pretty much exactly the same in business. We upskill our team to be able to have them be performing better than your competitors. So you get more business, you get more exposure.
Yeah.
So there's the cross, and the cross between business and sport, and the lessons that you actually can get from sport are transferable into the business space. There's a guy that I know, played for the British and Irish Lions, played for Ireland, Irish rugby, and he's got sports psychology. That what he learnt from teamwork and from that side of things, he is able to take that into a business and it's treated exactly the same. Same concepts, trying to achieve the same thing, teamwork, leadership, setting goals and things like that. He's able to transfer that across and use it. So, but the concepts are the same. It's just the way that they're treated from a amateur status to a professional status.
Yeah. I guess the thing too is that I would almost go so far as to say that most people they look at the role of a coach in any sporting team, and everybody just widely accepts that that's an incredibly important, integral part of every team. People think of the team with a coach. It's a almost inextricably linked thing that people think about when they think of teams, but they don't think about then sort of in that same context of how we're saying that how similar things are, but then people don't generally, as a common thing, don't always think about having a coach then for your business. But I've just, once again, I can only say that I would recommend really anybody and everybody to do, because it can be so invaluable for the same reasons as we were going over, like for a sports team and more. It's just so there's so many advantages to it, and I always like the I can't remember who provided this quote, but it was a quote that I remember from when I became a instructor in martial arts area, and one of the things, the quotes that was provided to me about ideally being a good instructor was one of the examples of being like a great instructor is that you are showing people the door and you're informing them about things. You're not necessarily you're not telling them how to do things in a particular way, but you're providing them with a set of ideas and things for them to walk through it. And ultimately, they have to walk through the door and they have to do it. And, that idea of empowering people, and that's always really stayed with me, that idea.
As a leader, our job is to ensure that all of those within our teams, whether it's a team of one, which is a sole trader, sole operator, or whether you have bigger teams, as a leader, our job is to ensure that our teams have all the tools they need to be able to do what they need to do, which is exactly what you're saying. We give them the tools and we give them the guidance and we hold them accountable, but we're not the ones that do it. So all we can do as leaders is look at our role and say, well, our job is to ensure that they're getting all the support they need, the direction they need, the guidance they need, the skills they need, the mindset they need to be able to do what it is that they want to do, not do it for them. And we can't do it for them. So as coaches and as advisors, our job isn't to do it for them. Our job is to help them see how they can do it and give them the tools to be able to do it their own way.
And that realization, I guess, too, can be an incredibly empowering thing, and also whilst some of those things people are kind of always aware of, and I've gone through this too, like you generally know things. Things could be, should be, can be done certain ways, but there is something kind of extra special about then having that realization through through the engagement that you have with a coach or that advisor. It can be really fantastic. And
again, it ties back to the feeling that you get.
Yeah,
if you've got someone that's able to empower you, to pump your tires up, to invest in you, to help you see that you're able and capable of doing what it is that you want to do, what sort of feeling is that going to give you, as opposed to someone who's gives you no direction, no love, no guidance, no nothing, and expects you to still hit the same targets?
Yeah.
The feeling you get when you work with someone who's able to help you navigate the challenges as they come up and walks beside you, that there gives you a feeling of, I'm part of something that's great, that's moving forward, that's, it's not just me. Whereas when you sit back and try to do it all yourself, as you said, we tend to try and do it all ourselves. Then when we don't hit our targets, we blame ourselves. But being able to have someone beside you that walks with you and helps you, then it just gives you the opportunity to, as you're going through, something comes up, you can sort of turn to old mate next to you and just go, see that boulder? What do you reckon? It's coming at us pretty quickly. I haven't experienced this before. What do you think? What are some of the options that we've got? Well, we could Indiana Jones it and jump over it or round it or lasso it or whatever. And to be able to then navigate, how do you keep moving forward, even when those things come at you? You have someone that has potentially experienced what it is you're about to experience, or has the ability to let you see that it's not just a boulder coming at you. You've got the ability to be able to get around it or get through it or get over it.
Yeah, and you've got the idea. Say if you're talking about a boulder, I guess one of the first things, if you see a boulder rolling down a hill at you, you think it's going to kill me, it's going to flatten me, or I can jump out of the way, or I can do this. But I saw a TEDx talk the other night, and it was a guy who was a hacker who now works for other governments to help with hacking problems. But one of the things that he said at the end of his talk was really, I really liked it, and it ties very much into this whole topic, was he said, hackers that we are good for these particular roles then to help with certain tasks, because our mind works like this. So we don't look at a phone and go, that's used for calling or for sending a text or for browsing the internet. We look at a phone and think, what else can it do? Like, how can I pull this apart and make it do other stuff? Which, is of course then used for nefarious things. But that mindset of looking at something at a range of different angles is really, really powerful, I think.
We all have our own filters around what we see. So I could have exactly the same apple that you're holding in your hand. I've got exactly the same apple. We're looking at the same thing, but you'll look at it at a particular way based on your experiences, your beliefs, your values, and the way that you were brought up. I'll look at it in a different way based on my filters and my beliefs and my values and things that also determine the way that I see the world. They'll be different to the way you see the world. So you might look at it and go, oh, apples. As a kid, I grew up and we had apples every day. We had apple pie. We had apples for lunch, and I hated it because I just hated apples. Whereas I'd look at it and go, that's awesome. That's healthy. Apple a day keeps the doctor away. The way that I see it would be totally different to the way you see it. So being able to look at change and have different perspectives on that change, ultimately you are the one that's responsible for making your own decisions. But when you have the ability to have those decisions be more informed, you're going to be able to make more of them, and they're going to be better quality decisions.
Yeah, totally. I guess on a as we're moving towards the end of the podcast, I'd just like to, on the back of some of these things we've been talking about, just one last kind of point, which I once again was a little bit, I guess, inspired by another thing I was watching the other night, which was the power of an ongoing communication or a certain openness. I saw this thing that was really very powerful. There was a guy a number of years ago who was he sort of came to light, I think via CNN, was Afro-American guy who ended up becoming very good friends with a member, one of the, I think, the Grand Wizards of the Ku Klux Klan. And his talk that he had was, its core point at the end of it was that he didn't, it wasn't about the fact that he convinced this guy from the Ku Klux Klan to leave the Ku Klux Klan. The whole point of this thing was this very, very powerful idea of the fact that he didn't go into understanding or wanting to understand why these people hated him so much by through fear. He went into it trying to actually learn about the Ku Klux Klan. And so he ended up having this interview with this guy, and then over a period of years, they actually became really good friends. And his point at the end of it was that he went into it, I guess, from a give is gain perspective into this whole scenario of saying, I just want to learn about why you feel this way. I'm going to try and understand you. We'll have a conversation about it. And they had an ongoing conversation over a number of years until this guy who was the head of the Klan in this one area in the United States ended up actually leaving the Klan because he saw through their conversations a different realization. And I thought that was a really powerful idea about about change, and it really, like, it was an amazing sort of talk. And I thought I'd just like to get your thoughts. Like, we've gone over the idea of change management a bit, but I'd just like to hear your thoughts on the that idea of ongoing open communication.
Without communication, change doesn't happen and it can't be managed. So, upfront conversations with whether it's new clients or, again, talking about it this morning, it's how do you manage the expectations of clients as to set the delivery of the relationship going forward, in terms of how does your team know that they've got your support? How do they know that they're empowered to make decisions and you're going to back them if you're acting in a particular way? Let's say integrity is, ensuring that the action words are actually and your behaviours are in line. So, are you communicating left, right, and centre to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on? So for me, over communication's better than under communication, because at least people understand what's going on.
Yeah, totally. So with that in mind too, Paul, I'd like to ask you for if you wouldn't mind, providing some sort of relevant quote or something that you actually really like that you feel relates to what we've been talking about.
So I can't remember what my quote was from the last podcast. So I'm going to give you one that I've used over the last couple of weeks, which has been quite relevant to a lot of business owners. And that is, if you want people to dance, be the music. If you want something to happen, be the energy that they need to be able to do it. So if you want people to dance, be the music. Is my quote.
I like it. That's a good one. And also, if you'd be so kind to also just let people know yet again the best way that they can learn more about you and Mentoris, and also the best way to get in contact with you as well.
Yeah, so our website's mentorisgroup.com.au. We're on Instagram, Mentoris Group Strategy. I'm on LinkedIn. You can contact me directly by email, strategy@mentorisgroup.com.au. Ring me. I'm on social media. And if you can't find me, then you're probably not looking in the right spots.
Or you don't have a computer or a phone.
Or you're not looking under the right rock. So, or get in contact with Saul, and Saul can then get you in contact with me. But yeah, happy to have a conversation. I love drinking coffee, as you guessed. I love to speak, and if there's anything that I can help add value to small to medium-sized businesses, I'm in. Thanks
so much, Paul. That was great, as always. I really appreciate you sharing all your thoughts. It's absolutely fantastic. And so with that in mind, that's actually it again for today, guys. Thanks so much for listening into our podcast. Before we go, please leave your feedback as well as any suggestions for future topics you would like us to discuss in any future episodes. Thanks again for listening to the Grow Your Business podcast, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Grow Your Business. Have a great day.